Most people chase success at the cost of their health. I always say so many of us spend our entire life building our wealth only to turn around and spend all the money on getting better with our health. Today's guest, Ted Ryce, he's here to break that cycle. He's a celebrity trainer, longevity expert, and the host of the Legendary Life podcast. He spent over 20 years helping high performers get leaner, get stronger, and get sharper without burning out. So in this episode, we talk about what real discipline looks like, why he even got into the fitness industry, and why it's important to understand your habits, your mindset, and your leadership and how they're all connected. Because the truth is, if your energy is off, everything else follows. So if you're done with the all or nothing thinking and ready to optimize the long game, this episode is for you. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. This is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. Today, we are bringing another amazing guest. Please help me welcome, wherever you are, Ted Ryce to the show. Ted, thanks for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Ted, I always like to start the episode by allowing the guests to learn a little bit more about, or allowing the audience to learn a little bit more about the guest. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are in your own words? And I always like to say, who are you when you're in high school?
Yeah, and the way who was I in high school? Well, a skateboarding, weed smoking, screw up. But I think what's more relevant to your audience is that I ended up working in a personal training context with Richard Branson, Robert Downey Jr., Ricky Martin, as well as a lot of people you wouldn't know, but who are very famous in Miami, let's say locally.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people also don't know is what I told you initially. People looked at me in my 20s when I first started and got into fitness. They're like, oh, you were like the football guy. You've always been healthy. You've always been into this, which is somewhat true. I lifted weights. My dad got me into it, even though he gave up. He was an attorney, workaholic, drank too much, right? But he got me into it when I was much younger. However, the way I started, I was that skateboarding kind of party guy.
Okay. So tell us a little bit, because I want to learn more about the great work that you're doing in the health industry and supporting a lot of, everything from companies to celebrities, like you mentioned. But walk us through that path a little bit, because we like to learn a little bit about how you got to where you are today, because it's not a straight path, right? There's falls, there's failures. So tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today. What was the journey for you?
Yeah, and I think there's two major pivot points. I was in school after being a screw up. I finally got to college, realized I didn't like high school very much, but I liked college because I could decide what I was studying. Wanted to go into neuroscience because I was fascinated with the brain and behavior, and also, some of the why does my dad drink so much? Why do I like marijuana? Right. And it all comes down to our brain chemistry. And so that was kind of cut short. I don't know how much you want me to go into this, but my little brother was kidnapped and murdered. It was a big, very public situation. In fact, my parents ended up going to the White House, getting laws passed. So it was a very public situation. And but me personally, I ended up dropping out of college and didn't know what to do with myself. And I felt broken, right? I was just 19 years old when it happened, and my little brother is gone. And it's a terrible story. Don't look it up unless you don't mind a tear-jerker of a story, because it's really quite horrible. But the way I figured things out was through health and fitness, because the story was, my life is over. I dropped out of college. My brother is dead. My life is over, right? And it turned out not to be the case, because I ended up finding health and fitness, which I had, in spite of my kind of party ways. I was lifting weights before. I did martial arts in the past, so it wasn't always a party. And I somehow just ended up getting back into it.
It was your outlet. It was your outlet.
Exactly. I didn't know what else to do, because I was drinking alcohol at the time. That wasn't making me feel. It kind of made you feel better in the moment, but then you didn't feel good later. Yeah. It kind of was making everything worse. But I noticed that when I went into the gym and worked on my body, although the story of the external events that happened, the murder of my brother, it didn't change. But I changed. The way I felt changed. And it was an aha moment for me. And so I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah. Wow. That's I'm sorry to hear that. And I can only imagine what that would feel like, especially at that age. But I really appreciate you sharing your story and your vulnerability, and also sharing about how you got into health and fitness. So today it's a big part of your life, I would say, right? You're doing this amazing work, you're doing keynotes. There's so much that we can talk about when it comes to health and fitness. I think a lot of health and fitness also has to do with the mind, right? And
Agreed.
how we view our body, how we view health. I know there's a lot of stuff out there in the mass media that's confusing for people. So people don't always, even if they do want to get healthy, they don't always know which path to take, or if they're taking the right path, especially when it comes around food. So you're the expert. I kind of want to toss it to you. You know, why do you think it is that specifically in America, let's start there, we're one of the most obese countries in the world, and more we're getting sick despite the amount of gyms, and despite, you know, all the fad diets and everything, we continue to get sick and more unhealthy. That's a big question, but let's just start there.
No, the softballs, I like it.
Yeah.
Start with the easy stuff. Yeah, and to be honest, I do think it's a really straightforward answer, to
Okay.
be honest. And so many people are confused by it. Another part of my story is that in 2018, I left Miami, I left the US, I moved to Thailand,
Okay.
and I haven't lived in the United States since that time, not for extent. I've traveled a lot. That's a whole nother story that I
Yeah.
don't want to go into. But why I bring it up now is because it's relevant to answering the question you asked. Because so many of my clients, they feel like, you know what? I make money. I'm a successful CEO, or I built multiple companies and even sold them. But I feel like a bit of a loser, or like maybe I'm not that successful because look at my body. It's out of shape. It's, you know, I have so much body fat. And the reality is, it's the environment of the United States. It's not the most important thing is that the United, like people, I'll say it like this. When people go to, let's say, Italy for vacation, oh man, I was eating pasta and pizza and I was losing weight. Yeah, because when you're in the States, the average American gets 5,000 steps or less per day. We hardly move. And then in Italy, if you track your steps, I got an Oura ring on right now. It tracks my steps. You'll be walking 15, 20,000 steps a day. So you triple, or even what's the word, quadruple your steps. And all of a sudden you can even lose weight while you're on vacation. It's because you don't move at home. And the portion sizes are out of control. We know the number one thing that causes fat gain, it's not what you hear. It's not the chemicals, your age slowing down. We know from research, your metabolism doesn't slow down until you're 60. And even it's a small amount. What the big issue is, we don't move. And over time, our calorie consumption has increased. A lot of that sometimes makes people a lot of people angry because they want some sort of complicated physiological answer. That's the truth. And so we're in this situation where the portion sizes have gotten progressively bigger as people have gotten progressively bigger. All started around in the 80s. Obesity has always been around, but the spike in obesity started in the 80s. And, we're just this sedentary society. Also, it's a culture. I'm in Brazil right now, for example. People will go out and drink alcohol, but they're dancing for hours. And so you'll see very fit people who do things that you would think they shouldn't be able to do, but they look super fit. Well, why is that? Because they're burning hundreds of calories, even though they drink caipirinhas, which is nothing but alcohol and sugar.
Yeah. Interesting. I think I agree with you in that aspect. When I first started the company Rise Up For You, I went to the Scandinavian region, which, the happiest countries in the world, to understand why. One of the pillars that we talk about here is health, right? Because we believe in whole leadership, like building the whole person. And I noticed when I went to Scandinavia that they were constantly riding bicycles, walking, playing outside, like utilizing a car was not something that everybody was doing. They, again, they would walk, they would get on a train, they would ride their bike to work. People had their briefcases, while they were riding their bike in a suit. And so I agree with you. The more I travel, the more I see that we tend to live a more sedentary lifestyle, especially since COVID, where many of us work from home. I'd be curious to ask you a little bit more about the nutritional side of things. So some people say that, yes, the fitness is so important, getting movement is important, walking is important, but the more important factor, and I want your professional take on this, is what we're putting in our mouth, whole foods versus processed foods, and meat versus vegan. So I want to hear your professional take on this.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Because I used to be there very confused about this too. So what I'm about to say, I want you to know, I say this with love, and like a lot of the things that people tell you about the complicated nutrition details, some of it's true, some of it isn't. What is true? Here's what we know. The amount of calories that you eat. Why does someone starve to death? They don't have enough calories. And nobody is suffering from that, or at least not that I know of course, in the United States, but in South Asia, for example, they have food insecurity. Why? They simply don't have enough calories to eat. Why do people put on so much body fat that they, can't even move? We know your body, it can't make body fat out of nothing, right? It defies the laws of physics. So it's because people are eating so much. And why I bring that up, that's the number one principle. Because even I've had people who are obese tell me, oh, but I eat so healthy. Listen to my diet. I have the naked green juice. Oh, well, it's 270 calories, but I didn't bother looking at that. And I ate an acai bowl. Oh, that's super healthy from the Amazon. Like, it's a superfood that I read, probably saw on a TikTok. Okay, but that's 500 calories, and the coconut on it added another 100, right? And so people are just unaware. It's not just unaware. It's like there's so much information. It makes sense that so many people are confused. But why bring up calories is the number one thing, because even if you're eating those healthy superfoods, and let's say you have a whole food diet, if you have excess body fat, and more specifically visceral fat, which is the fat around your belly, the fat around your organs, it secretes inflammatory chemicals that make you unhealthy. We know that people who have obesity, they have more issues with their brains, they have more issues with their joints. In fact, obese people, you might say, okay, well, they get more arthritis in their knees, but guess what? They also get more arthritis in their hands. Why? They don't walk on their hands, right? So it's not an issue of the weight, it's the inflammatory environment that excess body fat creates. And that's all regulated by calories in versus calories out. How many calories are you eating versus how many are going out? And I say that, Nada, because people believe, okay, I can't get in shape. I can't eat well. Why can't you eat well? Well, I like a little red wine. I like to have some pizza, and that's not what that's not a healthy diet. I like an occasional French fry. You can fit in all those foods. All my clients do it. And even I would argue that you maybe, being a little bit strict, that's what I do in my coaching program. Have clients for the first couple of weeks be a bit more strict, but then eventually you have to take away restrictions, because the number one issue with nutrition, and of course we have to talk about weight, is like people regain it. Well, why? There's a lot of reasons, and there's some physiological reasons too, but at a more fundamental level, if you love carbs and you're in Italy, right? I love Italy.
Yeah.
Pizza, I had pizza last night, and you try to do the low carb diet and you're like, I can't live like this. So
it's not sustainable.
it's not sustainable. And so, yes, the nutrients you get there, we can talk about like how pomegranate juice can lower inflammation and lower cholesterol. And what are some other things that the ergothioneine in oyster mushrooms, and that's what people love to hear. And it's true, but focus on calories first. And I don't care if you're eating all the superfoods. If you have excess body fat, you've got some work to do on your diet. Your diet isn't healthy. And One more thing I think is really important. Your health is not the story you tell yourself about it. Meaning like I eat this healthy food, the acai, I have the green juice, and so I have this healthy story. Your health is how much body fat do you have? How much muscle do you have? What does your blood work look like? Because there's standards that are already established. And that's the first thing I do when I have someone come to work with me. We get data on them because health is what the data says, whether you're
Yeah.
healthy or not.
Yeah. It's so, the calorie in, the calorie out is so, I always find it so fascinating because I have a nutritionist and, she always tells me journal my food. And, I get a little bit lazy. Most of the time I forget to journal, but when I do journal it, I'm like, holy crap, that handful of cashews was like 500 calories. And I don't even feel like I ate anything, And so when I start to journal, I start to build more awareness around the fact that some of the foods that we're eating, just like you said, Ted, that we think are, look, I barely had anything, I had a handful of this, end up being like more than half the calorie intake that you can have in a day.
That's such a great point. There's two things I would say about that. Number one is that's why we talk about calories instead of food, because yeah, we eat foods, but the issue is, to your point with the cashews, if you give me a big bag of cashews, it's going to disappear. I don't even care if it's big bag, if it's a small bag, it's going to disappear.
That's your calories for the week.
Exactly. Nuts are super high. Nuts are, by the way, a healthy food. If you look at the research on nut consumption, especially walnuts, almonds, it's beneficial. However, if you're already in a situation where you have more excess body fat, you have to really watch how much you're eating because it's easy to overeat. And to your point, everybody loves to hate on carbs, like, oh, the sugar, which is another conversation we could have. But nuts don't satiate you. In other words, you eat them, you're still hungry after. So that's one thing. And then the whole satiety, people hear about calories and managing the calories. And so they're like, okay, calories in, calories out. Got it. I'm going to work out twice a day, 7 days a week, and I'm going to eat salad and I'm going to eat a glass of orange juice for breakfast, a salad for lunch, and then, I don't know, a piece of chicken for dinner.
Yeah.
And you end up in this situation where it's not sustainable. So there's a right amount of calories for a person to help them lose the weight at a good rate, let's say a pound to 2 pounds per a week. And there's food choices that help you to be more satiated. The battle is with hunger.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I love that. So Ted, this has been a really great conversation. Before we jump into the power section, I'd love for you to provide maybe just like one tip, health hack for the entrepreneur, the CEO, the executives that are listening to this, that I even tell myself this story too. When I just got back from 3 weeks of traveling on the road, gained 5 pounds. And I'm like, oh, it's because I'm traveling. So what are some things that the busy professional that is on the run can do to just help this process of being healthy, maintaining, and really just building a life where they don't have to spend all their wealth on their health by the time they retire?
Yeah, great question. And the real answer is hire someone to help you. But I know that's not what you're asking. So what I would tell you is focus on exercise first and track it. I would even back up. Get data on your health if you haven't already. I've seen people say, oh, I feel pretty good, I'm pretty healthy. Then they get their blood work. They have high cholesterol. Their triglycerides are too high. There's some signs of insulin resistance. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm super motivated to do something with my health now. But if you're already kind of there, micro workouts, exercise is the number one thing. People love to talk about nutrition. It's a super sexy topic because, it seems so, fascinating and mystical and complicated names of chemicals, but focus on exercise. Exercise is the number one thing. And it can even help regulate your appetite. It'll help you sleep better. So I would say that.
Okay.
Micro workouts.
I love that. And you can do them in your hotel, I've learned as well.
Yeah. Something is better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Ted, this has been a great conversation. I think it's a very important conversation. I would actually like to have you back at a later point to get a little bit more micro and some different health topics, but I'd love to jump into the power section of the interview and just ask you some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
Yeah, the first question I'd love to ask is, if you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it the golden nugget here at Rise Up For You. What would that golden nugget be?
It would be to leave a legacy through example, not through what you say, but leave a legacy through example. What did you do? How did you take care of yourself? What types of behaviors did you model for health, for relationships, for wealth, for career? So leave a legacy through example.
I love that. And here at Rise Up For You, there's 4 major pillars. We call it the Rise Power Up method that we focus on when we're helping individuals and teams become high performance: self-confidence, emotional intelligence, leadership, and influential communication. So I'm curious, from your perspective, Ted, out of those 4 that I mentioned, which one would you say, like, I'm doubling down on, this is the most critical one?
Read me the options one more time, please.
Self-confidence, emotional intelligence, leadership, and influential communication.
Oh my gosh, it's so tough. But what I would say is the emotional intelligence was specifically related to emotional regulation.
Yeah.
I feel so much of even influential conversation or communication. If you can't maintain your composure, it's really difficult to get what you want to get across or to come to a resolution. So, and the good thing is, and I was never taught this, I did meditation classes in Thailand when I moved there in 2018. And all of a sudden I was like, I would be mad at something in a relationship. I can remember a time where I was like, oh, I'm so mad about this. And then I would meditate and it's like, well, I still don't feel great about what happened, but that emotional intensity isn't there. And that's, for anything, whether we're doing a business deal or in a personal relationship, professional relationship. So that's what I would say.
I love that answer. That's great. Ted, thank you again for joining us. I have one more question, but before I ask, tell the audience where we can learn more about you, where we can find out about you and connect.
Yeah, you can find me on where podcasts are, the Legendary Life podcast. But if you really want to hear what I teach my clients, I would love to give my masterclass away. And you can find that at legendarylifepodcast.com/free.
Okay, perfect. And we'll make sure we put it in the show notes as well for all of you to click it. And please, please, please take advantage of Ted's free gift. Thank you for that, Ted. Final question for you is, as you know, we're the company Rise Up For You. What comes to mind when you hear that phrase?
Rise up. It means despite your circumstances, despite the stories, you still find a way to rise above it all, to be your best self, to self-actualize, to make whatever mark you want on the world. So rise above your circumstances and stories.
I love that. Ted, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rise Up For You podcast.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Nada.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for joining the Rise Up For You podcast. Again, this is your host, Nada Lena Nasserdeen. Every single week, we are bringing you new episodes with amazing thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and executives from around the world that are here to help support you and your team be your absolute best. I will see you next time. Thanks again, Ted. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Before you leave, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel and check us out on social media. We are everywhere, from LinkedIn to Instagram to Facebook, at our simple handle at Rise Up For You. On every single platform, it's exactly the same. And we're providing new content on every single platform, so there's something different everywhere. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our podcast, and connect with us on social media. I'll see you next time.